Hey guys, welcome to another of my videos where I use exposure therapy to help treat my choking phobia. So today we're going to be talking about health anxiety. So if you're not interested in that, just don't watch this video. As I said though, I'm going to be talking about all sorts of things about anxiety and depression and mental health, mental illness, and how to, deal with that and break the stigma. So one of the reasons I'm making this video is to appeal to more people because not everyone has choking phobia. Choking phobia is considered relatively not very common. Phobias are more common, and this is kind of called health anxiety or illness anxiety. It's not a phobia as much as it is an anxiety disorder or an illness. So let's just get into it. The main guy will be learning our information from is Ken Goodman, and he's here. This is the guy, the liaison for the for the Anxiety and Depression Association of America. And down here is a sufferer who has health anxiety. So you won't be able to hear what they're saying. I will be talking though. So there are two different subtypes of health anxiety. There's illness anxiety, and then there's like somatic symptom disorder. Because he's getting into how health anxiety is a very tricky type of thing. There is no official diagnosis. There is no, you can't technically get diagnosed, and so you may think you have something else. Um, So when I talk about somatic symptoms, because I mentioned illness anxiety is one of the, um, let's start with what this guy's talking about. Let's say you have health anxiety, which is a fear of becoming ill, and you go to the doctor, and the doctor says you have no reason to be worried, but if you're concerned, come back in 6 months. What your health anxiety is going to tell you is, yeah, why would she tell me to come back in 6 months if there was nothing wrong, right? So you always need this reassurance from your doctor. You think that your doctor, you don't trust him or her, you want a second opinion. You always feel like they're missing something, like they're looking at an x-ray chart and their thumb is on the x-ray so they don't see something. And so I know I had a little bit of health anxiety when I had my choking phobia. I know I went to the doctor and they gave me this tube down my throat, and they said there's nothing wrong with you physically in terms of your swallowing mechanism. They didn't say anything wrong there. They didn't notice that I was being uncooperative because I had to drink this milkshake type thing that would do an x-ray of my throat. I didn't really want to. I drank a little bit of it, and so they said patient was being uncooperative, and I took that to mean like, oh man, the doctors aren't really caring enough for me. They think I'm an uncooperative patient, so they're gonna not care as much about their tests about me. That's part of my health anxiety. It's the same thing as going to the doctor, and doctor saying, yeah, nothing wrong with you. You just seeing this little bit of information saying patient was uncooperative, and that's somehow that means your anxiety of choking is gonna get worse. It's gonna get worse. So we're going to have Ken here talk about the two subtypes, illness, anxiety, and somatic symptom disorder. Somatic symptoms, what are somatic symptoms? They're symptoms that include, pain, pressure, um, neurological and digestive systems. Symptoms. So basically, feelings of pain, headaches, feeling your heart is racing. And these symptoms, right, these somatic symptoms, they have to be distressing enough to significantly disrupt your daily life. So we're talking about pain, digestive systems, neurological problems, and so illness anxiety is primarily about worrying about these things. About there's pain in my hand. Is that pain going to shoot up to my chest and get a heart attack? And so that's how people with illness anxiety think they're going to have cancer, they have heart attacks, they're going to have this, they're going to have that. As I said, it's characterized primarily by worry. So you worry about what's happening, and yeah. So, as I said, the characteristics of health anxiety is a preoccupation with having or acquiring a serious illness. There are somatic symptoms that are distressing or disruptive. For example, tingling in the face, lump in the throat, which is a big one for me, and difficulty breathing. Also, excessive time devoted to symptoms or health worrying. So, like what if thinking, worst case scenario thinking, always being preoccupied with your health. And also you would get excessive health related, behaviors such as regular visits to the doctor for a mole that you think may be cancerous, or for heart trouble that may be a heart attack. And you'll get medical tests like I would from a barium swallow to make sure. Now, this wasn't because of my health anxiety. It was just because when you have trichophobia, you're kind of other things kind of come to the surface when you're trying to get better with them. You'll realize there's deeper issues at play than just trichophobia. So for me, I realized it was my sexuality. So yeah, you would go online, or you would obviously take too many medications, or you would reassurance seek with your family. You would scan your body for pain. You would do compulsive checking all over your body for little things, little moles, little whatever, hairs, and you would search online, of course. You would go on WebMD, Dr. Google, say, oh no, I have this, I have whatever, Guillain-Barré or cancer or heart attack or whatever, right? So it goes down to avoidance. He's going to get into this. The main reason we have health anxiety, or people who suffer from health anxiety do, is because they avoid. They do something called avoidance behavior, which is they have a fear of going to the doctor, right? Trying medications, going out, exercising. And that becomes, fear is a side effect of health anxiety. They fear going to the doctor, they fear going out, and can obviously be very crippling. So there's two things, and he's going to get into this very soon, that underlie all anxiety, right? Intolerance of uncertainty and intolerance of distress. So these are for all anxiety disorders: social anxiety, generalized anxiety disorder, depression. Because even with depression, you'll have a bit of anxiety. Any phobias, any sort of anxiety subtype. There's two things that people have a problem with, and that is intolerance of uncertainty and intolerance of distress. And he's going to get into this later. The main reason you do exposure, he's going to get into this a little later, is because you want to be tolerant of uncertainty and tolerant of distress. If you can be tolerant of uncertainty and tolerant of distress, you're going to be better than someone who can't deal with those things, just from a character point of view, and also from an anxiety illness point of view. Now we have I forget her name. Let's just call her Sally, health anxiety sufferer here, who's talking about her symptoms and how she's dealt with it. I think she got over it much more, although she's saying that, yeah, she more than likely has done many of these things, reassurance seeking, searching online. She says she did that a lot. Searching online, she says she did a lot. And so, yeah, her entire life would become smaller and smaller. It would just be about your health. It would just be about your health. It wouldn't be about anything you're interested in. Your entire life gets smaller and smaller. You look everything through the prism of health anxiety. Where is this pain? Where is this mole? Whatnot. So let's keep moving. So we can get into what underlies all anxiety. Yeah, what underlies all anxiety? As I said, intolerance of uncertainty and intolerance of distress. What does that mean? Well, first of all, let's get into the causes, the basic causes of illness anxiety or health anxiety. It's genetics, obviously. A lot of mental illnesses have genetics. There's also an anxious parent. If you had an anxious parent who is anxious about illness, then you may learn those behaviors. Right? If your parent had he's going to get into this right now. If your parent had an illness anxiety or was preoccupied, also a loved one suffered with an illness. If a loved one you had, for example, suffered from cancer or heart attack, whatever, stroke, you would also think you may be getting that, or a death from an illness, right? Or if you had a previous illness, somewhat like this, right? I never really had a previous illness, though I did for a long period of time in my life. I still do have this pain in the back of my neck. It's like it gets better because you get okay with it. Although that would kind of like come on with my chokephobia and my health anxiety. It'll come together and be like, oh no, you're gonna choke. There is something physically wrong with you, and there's a pain in the back of your neck. It's all related. In reality, it's not. These are basic causes, right? Having a previous illness, like having neck trouble, isn't really a previous illness. And the next one is if a doctor missed something, right? These are what causes health anxiety. This is what causes the fear of illness, right? If the doctor missed something, he didn't look. I was being a disruptive patient, so he didn't really look at everything. So that's that. Worry is easily triggered with people who have health anxiety. right? For example, if you have an unusual or painful sensation in your body, let's say your hand starts to tingle, you're like, oh man, what does that mean? And for a person with health anxiety, they would start going on Google, tingling hands, and may end up in an ER room saying, I have stroke, I have whatever, because my hands are tingling. And I truly, fully believe that this is what I have. And we gotta understand that that it's health anxiety. And another thing that can trigger health anxiety is a flare-up of a medical disorder. For example, my acid reflux. I have gastroesophageal reflux disease, which is known as chronic acid reflux. And acid reflux is if you feel like there's tightness in your chest here, in your throat, you think it's because you're choking. In reality, it's because the acid is kind of building up your esophagus, and some of it kind of burps up into your mouth. And that's what causes that burning feeling. You don't know that though. You don't trust that. Somehow you just trust your feelings and your emotions, and that's where it all health anxiety comes in. Just to be clear, I don't have health anxiety. I've never been diagnosed with it. I do have some of the feelings though, especially with the choking. Like I said, worry is easily triggered. You got a flare up of medical disorder, social media posts, illness on TV, movie news. We're bombarded with these things. Hear someone talk about an illness or death, right? Something your doctor says, right? Doctor discharge instructions are unclear. Lab values are outside the normal range, for example, pulse, blood pressure, blood, or you're waiting for test results. Any one of these situations would cause worry in someone who has health anxiety because they're seeing things only from like, oh, it could be a heart attack. Even something your doctor says. All right, I'm going to stop here for a second. Even something your doctor says. For example, your doctor said, right? Your doctor said that, oh, you were an uncooperative patient. So somehow you're going to assume that means that he's not going to do his best for dealing with the test results and helping you be better. Why would they not do that? Why would they take that stuff personally? There's many people who are not cooperative with their doctors. Does that mean the doctors betray their oath to help them? And so, also, I'm not trying to say this to like get to the solutions. This is just like me trying to explain what health anxiety is. Again, so if you hear someone talk about an illness or death, it's the same thing. You get triggered. Like, even sometimes with me, if I hear someone's like, oh, that guy choked to death, like, I don't really necessarily seek out videos about people choking. I used to, because of my choking phobia. Now I realize that it's just not interesting. Like, why? Like, I realized it was my fear that was driving me to watch these videos. My fear of death. And once you kind of be like, okay, well, let's try to deal with that, and your behaviors will change, and you'll stop watching videos of people choking or learning about different types of things about choking. For example, if you have a different, sort of issue, you can start thinking about heart attacks, your major organs, the kidney failure, blood pressure, strokes and whatnot. So that's what someone with health anxiety would be thinking, would be feeling on a daily, semi-daily basis. Even when they go to the doctors for the reassurance, they would always see something negative. For example, if you're in a hospital and you just got some sort of treated for something, the doctor says you're great, you're fine, although I cannot guarantee anything with the heart. That's something Sally was talking about. She'll be talking about this. Remember, she was talking about this in the PowerPoint. She was like, well, I went to a doctor and they gave me these huge discharge instructions. And I got so confused because it said, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. And it kind of just feeded the worry more and more. It feeded the worry more and more, and it kind of, didn't help. So again, you end up doing a lot of avoidance techniques, right? As again, you try to basically dwell and worry. That's basically what someone with health anxiety does, is they dwell and they worry, and they compulsively check, and they avoid. And of course, they get reassurance from relatives, doctors, and tests, going to ER, and they experience physical symptoms, and they focus on them. And now I'm going to get into biology a little bit about, because we talked about the cause now. Let's get into biology and what exactly is going on in the human brain that causes anxiety. So in the human body, we have the brain and we have the kidneys. Now, in both the brain and the kidneys, there's something called glands. So in the brain, there's something called the pituitary gland. That is the gland that secretes adrenaline. It secretes adrenaline when you're watching a scary movie, or if you're anxious, right? Or if you're scared. It's your primarily fight or flight or freeze response. It's very small because they'll hold over from, reptilian kind of, primitive primate behavior. It's still there though, to save us from, imminent threats. And down here in the kidney is another organ, is another gland, another organ called the kidney, which is called the adrenal gland. And that also secretes adrenaline. So you gotta understand that anxiety is basically the release of adrenaline from these glands. And that causes anxiety. That causes all these symptoms. It's not a mystery as to how anxiety is being caused, or how it's happening. It's not a mystery. We can look under a microscope and see how this gland in the brain secretes adrenaline, which causes anxiety. It's the same thing race car drivers feel when they're driving, that adrenaline, So that's what causes anxiety. And of course, I'm not going to get to all the symptoms of anxiety. You guys know them all. Racing heart, rapid pulse, high blood pressure, tightness in chest, difficulty breathing, lightheadedness, sweating, muscle tension, stomach issues, diarrhea, nausea, acid reflux, depersonalization and derealization, tingling in hands and feet, shaking, jitters, lump in throat, frequent urination, poor sleep, poor concentration, slow mind, headaches, tired, low energy, decreased, or I think it's decreased or increased sex drive. Appetite. So remember though, it's very predictable. And what does that mean? It means your health anxiety is predictable. If you drink more coffee, you'll be, buzzed. If you drink more alcohol, you'll be slurring your speech. So just like with that, once the adrenal gland secretes more adrenaline, you'll become more anxious, right? And it starts with the imagination. Your imagination says, oh man, I'm seeing this on WebMD and it says I have cancer. It goes to your brain, the brain goes to your adrenal gland, and then you start thinking in your thoughts, there's something wrong with my skin. I have skin cancer, right? It's funny, I was thinking about this earlier today. I was seeing some moles and we go with cancer, but I don't really think it is. So with health anxiety, though, would dwell on that more and more. In this case, ALS, right? You have ALS because you looked it up on WebMD or because of a lab value or whatever. That's what I'm saying about. Start with the imagination. It's very important to kind of keep in check what you even imagine about with health anxiety. So your brain secretes the adrenaline, and then the thought goes, there's something wrong with your heart. That's the whole kind of way of looking at health anxiety. Right? You could be having a great day, and then you read something on Facebook about someone who was diagnosed with, MS. And you're like, oh man, I have MS. So why does this anxiety reaction happen so quickly? And why do rational people become irrational? Basically, why do people have this? Well, I already covered it. It's because of our brain structure. Our brain has glands that secrete adrenaline. So, so I don't want to get too much into the brain. I just want to get into this idea that this is kind of like an alarm system. Our adrenal gland is an alarm system that kind of allows us to it's kind of like it used to be primitive type of thing, and now we don't really need it because as we see, we have a prefrontal cortex here and a frontal cortex that has much more higher reasoning skills, like reasoning, problem solving, all that, compared to the amygdala, which is smaller and is basically our emotional reactions. And that's why, because that's just the brain is structured. The brain is structured with the whole executive functioning, like higher learning, Then a small bit here, which is kind of like your alarm system. Like, hey, watch out, danger, danger, danger. And so it's a holdover. The problem is that sometimes people with health anxiety, their amygdala goes haywire, goes super, like, on and on all the time, and it doesn't know that, like, there is no sign of danger. Like smoke alarms, for example, don't have a frontal cortex to determine if the smoke is really a sign of danger. Do you understand? So the prefrontal cortex will tell you, oh yeah, don't touch that hot stove because it's dangerous. For someone with health anxiety, though, they won't realize that there's something that you just have to trust your doctor on, and there's some things that are your imagination and are actually leading to more health anxiety. Again, it goes back to the wiring of the brain. Okay, the brain is made up of millions of neurons which connect with one another in a complex network. And we used to think the brain never changed. However, recent research has showed that during highly emotional states, the brain can change, right? Also, there's repetition. Repetition can help change the brain as well. So we used to think that you would just get dementia as the only really change you would have with the brain. Now psychiatrists, psychologists, and doctors know that the brain can be changed through neuroplasticity, the idea of the rewiring of your different brain muscles, and that would cause your alarm system to work. You could say, how you want it to correctly, whatever words you want to use, in a better way, so you don't have health anxiety. So how do we do this? How do we, change and strengthen the neural connections in the brain? Well, with all the practice you've had in avoiding, worrying, all these people have to have health anxiety, compulsively checking and grooming. Compulsively checking and seeking reassurance and focusing on your symptoms, you have kind of strengthened, obviously, those connections in your brain and exacerbated your anxiety and your illness of death. So then it becomes, well, what's the $64,000 question? How do you reverse it? How do you conquer health anxiety when you are genetically predisposed, right? How do you do it? Well, you do it. The short answer is through first realizing our bodies. You didn't get to this a second. Our bodies. Our bodies. Okay. Yeah. Our bodies are naturally noisy. So what's the way out? How do we deal with health anxiety? Our bodies are naturally noisy. The first thing you need to understand is you don't need to cut out your amygdala. What you gotta do is rewire the circuitry between your amygdala and your prefrontal cortex so you can understand what is danger and what is not. How do you do that? You do that through something known as cognitive behavioral therapy. How do you do that? First thing you realize is you look at the evidence. Our bodies are naturally noisy. Okay, we have muscle spasms, blood and stool. We have lingering coughs, lump in throat, tightness or discomfort in chest. These are just things that happen on a daily basis to people. It doesn't necessarily mean they have illnesses. Moles on skin, stiffness, crampiness, hand tremors, forgetfulness, itchiness, lightheadedness, tingling, heart pain, tiredness in the mind and the body, stomach issues, gas, bloating, stools, right? Constipation, eye issues, floaters, blurry vision. The world is a noisy place. You're gonna get into this. So don't think that you're alone when you experience these symptoms, because you're not. All of these symptoms are completely normal once in a while. It's when they become, right, really pronounced, and that to the point where you're unable to function and you're really feeling sick. That's when you would have a real reason to go to the ER and speak to a doctor. Naturally, though, you're going to experience these on a daily, monthly basis, or whatever. It happens. Some people get lightheadedness. It's just things people have. So that's what you need. You need cognitive behavioral therapy. First step of that is looking at the evidence as to how pronounced, how important are these symptoms that I'm experiencing. And you'll realize the symptoms, they're quite common, and they are not a real reason to worry unless they happen for a long period of time and you can't get up. So anxiety is filled with inner struggle, inner turmoil, right? Should I go to the doctor again? Is this a new mole, right? Maybe my doctor missed something. Maybe it's not acid reflux. Maybe it's throat cancer, right? I sometimes thought that. Yeah, I easily thought that. So how do you deal with it? Because when you have anxiety, no one wants to talk about it. No one wants to hear about your anxiety. No one wants to hear about your problems. That's what people say. That's what people think. And unfortunately, in society, it's kind of how it works. So it's like this inner struggle. Like, how do I look at things? Because the way you look at it is, you have an anxiety monster telling you what to do, and you got to look at it from a different point of view. You literally have to change how you look at the same thing, right? You have to look at it from a evidence-based point of view, right? Instead of looking at anxiety, instead of struggling with anxiety, look at it from the perspective of a mental game against a clever opponent, right? And you win this game by freeing yourself from health anxiety. Your opponent wins by keeping you trapped. What does all this mean? Well, the opponent's main strategy is to lie and to engage you in conversation, so your focus and attention is on health and symptoms rather than living your life. It's the same thing with choking phobia. If you think so much about what am I going to eat, when am I going to eat, how long will it take me, that you don't realize that it's all a lie. If you break free from anxiety, you realize I'll eat when I choose to, and I'll eat what I choose to eat, depending on my health, and if I'm hungry and I'm tasty. And you don't even have to think about it if you don't want to. You can be like, I don't feel like thinking about this right now. So that's your opponent's strategy, though. With health anxiety, they're going to be like, no, that mole really is cancer. No, that heart pressure is really a heart attack. And the second thing they get you to do is to engage you in conversation. So they'll get you to actually talk about what you're feeling, right? Like, oh, you'd be just watching TV and you'd feel a tingle in your hand. You're like, oh, what is that? So then your health anxiety brain will say, go on a WebMD. Look at what tingling in the brain means. So you gotta understand. Don't even fall for that. Just be like, no, why do I need to do that? Also, when you have health anxiety, your health anxiety will tell you that must be 100% certain when you look at your illnesses on Google or wherever you look at them. You must never believe your doctor or test results. This is honestly what people with health anxiety believe. If something bad happened to someone else, you must believe the chances are high it will happen to you. If something feels dangerous, then you must believe that it is dangerous, right? So you must take scary thoughts seriously to protect yourself, right? This is what health anxiety is making you feel. This is where the inner turmoil comes from. You must believe that the worst possible outcome is the most likely outcome. So obviously these aren't, you must scan your body all day long for signs of illness. If you find yourself doing this, you got to realize this is your health anxiety monster, your health anxiety brain telling you to do all these things. You must focus on your health to make sure you don't die. You might look at all these musts. 6 musts here. No, you don't have to must. Turn this into shoulds, and then turn those shoulds into, well, why? If you follow these rules, your anxiety monster will win. So the best thing to do is to externalize and personify your anxiety. Look at it like a monster with a big old blowhorn, screaming at you day and night and day, to do all these things. Go to your doctor again, check the test results again, read the lab values again, get another diagnosis again, go on WebMD again, right? You really are dying of cancer, right? And you want to realize that, the same stuff is going to happen. CBT trains you to look at it in a different way, though, in a more evidence-based way. So instead of asking yourself, for example, why do I keep getting headaches? If you're a health anxiety sufferer who keeps getting headaches and thinking you're going to get a stroke, ask yourself instead, why do you keep getting headaches? Not why do I keep getting headaches? Ask yourself, why do you keep getting headaches? Right? and you gotta separate you from your anxiety monster. If you get a headache, okay, yeah, I have a headache. Don't let your anxiety monster tell you what to think. Your doctor's very busy. What if she missed something or made a mistake? Right? A WebMD says you might have MS. You have all the symptoms. And once you externalize your anxiety monster, you're like, all right, bring it on, anxiety monster. How real are you? How based in facts and thoughts are you really? You need to call it, bring it. Say, come, anxiety monster, tell me how scary it's going to get. I have all the symptoms of MS. So am I dying of MS? Am I in the operating room? Am I in my last days? How severe is the MS? Right? Why do your hands always tingle and shake? Is it ALS? This is exactly what your health anxiety is going to say. Hold out your hands and see if they can shake. Right? What you want to do is focus on what you want to focus on. Not what your anxiety monster wants you to focus on. Your anxiety monster wants you to focus on your stomach, heart, etc., and worry only about it. For example, it may ask, why does your stomach hurt? What if you have stomach cancer? It'll demand, cancel your plans with your friend. Just rest and see if it goes away. Don't buy into your anxiety monster. Don't engage with it, and don't buy its lies. Instead, look at it as an external thing that's kind of like attacking you, and then you take away its power. Be like, oh, I can see you now. I know who you are. I know your tricks. I know your games. I know you're going to lie to me. And I know you're just telling me worst case scenarios. So then that's part one. And the second part of how do you deal with the anxiety monster is have your own strategy. So now you know the anxiety monster strategy. What's your strategy? Refuse to believe your opponent's lies. Right, it's about 5 strategies. Number 1, refuse to believe your opponent's lies. You have health anxiety. Let's this be your default. Okay, live with your health anxiety. Understand it. All right. Number 2, live without absolute certainty. Remember we talked earlier about having uncertainty and distress and tolerance of uncertainty and intolerance of distress. This is part of it. Be certain enough to be free from anxiety. You can't be certain. You can't be certain. Right? To be free from anxiety, you can't be certain. To be free from anxiety, you can't be certain. Be certain enough, though. Be certain enough. Remember, though, you can't be certain. Allow yourself to just be a little uncertain with your anxiety. Oh, a little tingling. Okay, it could be a cancer. Everyone's going to die. That's the nature of the world. People are going to die. It doesn't mean I have to think about it all the time. It could just mean some wind going over my hair, over my fingers, or a bug crawled on my hand. You know? Or something like I'm feeling tingly right now. That doesn't necessarily mean any illness. It's just kind of perhaps who I am. It's called, you know what I mean? That's the main thing. To be free from anxiety. You can't be certain. Of course, do not fall for his tricks to engage you in conversation. Don't answer his questions. Respond shrewdly. Don't answer his questions, because once you answer his questions, like, oh, what is that tingling sensation on my head? You are buying into his lies. Don't do that. Do the opposite of what your opponent tells you to do, and focus on living your life and not on your health. All right? Focus on living your life and not on your health. Really. Refocus and reframe what you choose to focus on. If you choose to focus on your bodily sensations, try for about 6 minutes every day to not do that. To breathe instead. Right? Accept what you know for sure and let this be your default. Say, okay, I know I went to a test for a doctor and he ruled out this. I went to another doctor, he ruled out this. You know, I went to WebMD and it said that I don't have this. So accept it and then focus on living your life. And don't focus on your health so much. And that's the number 2 step of dealing with health anxiety. Number 1 is realizing that you need to, you know, give it kind of a face, give it kind of a certain an understanding of what it is and who it is, and give it a face and make it an opponent. Second step is kind of don't engage with it, realize it's a liar, and just focus on living your life and not so much on your health. So that's health anxiety. Yeah, to be free from anxiety, you must be uncertain. That's definitely a big one. So, yeah, what you focus on, you will grow. Let me give you an example. This may help a little better. Like, let's say you go outside to check the weather. It's a sunny day, no clouds or wind. You check your weather app and it says it's 85 degrees and it's going to warm up to 89 degrees. Your friend meets you at your house. You plan to spend the day together outside. Your friend is wearing a jacket and tells you that it's a little chilly outside and it might get colder later. You are, on the other hand, feel warm. What do? Well, what you know for sure is what you have health anxiety, so don't minimize that. That's the first thing you should be talking about, not the weather or how cold it's gonna get. Look at what you know first. Your friend doesn't have health anxiety. You have health anxiety, so look at it from that point of view. I have health anxiety, so what do I focus on? What do I know for sure? Well, I know it's gonna get colder later, so I'm not gonna need a jacket. I'm not gonna bring it to this thing. I'm gonna need a jacket when it's 9 degrees out. So I said, what you focus on will grow. Don't obsess about your thoughts and your worries, because it will result in compulsions, which are behaviors. There's also mental compulsions like prayer. So yeah, obsessions are kind of the thoughts and the worries, and the compulsions are the behaviors. Checking your pulse, exactly, that's a good one. Scanning your body, checking your blood pressure, skin, right? Asking your loved ones for reassurance, going to the doctor, what anxiety tells you to do, avoiding triggers. Don't do any of those things. Really, that's another trick. Kind of step number 3 in dealing with health anxiety is to stop worrying about your health. Stop reading WebMD. Stop scanning your body for symptoms. Stop checking your pulse. Stop asking, and you gotta do this slowly. You start for 6 minutes, 6 minutes a day. Try to breathe and stop doing these things. Avoiding triggers, like for example, social media posts talking about it, or asking loved ones for reassurance. Okay, honey, what do you think about this mole? Is it good? You think I have cancer? Because your behaviors are actually your compulsions, and they exacerbate your health anxiety. And they make it worse. They really do make it worse. So, this is all kind of going into kind of facing your fears, facing your anxieties, and kind of, not focusing on the poop on the windshield, seeing past it, seeing through it. Because if you just focus on that, like, oh, this symptom, this lab value, this doctor's comment, you won't really realize that it's not that big of a deal. Just go to a car wash real quick, get it done. You know what I mean? Like, health anxiety is not that big of a deal. You can easily just reframe your thoughts. I mean, it's hard. It can be done though. Yep. So focus where you have control, right? And learn to respond and not react. Learn to respond and not react. Simple as that. Sorry, I meant to cover you up. Learn to respond and not react. Right? Learn to look at your anxiety as a monster that is irrational, that's coming from your glands causing anxiety, and simply respond the best you can. For example, responses for worrying thoughts. Let's say you think, what if you really do have cancer? Well, the best thing you could say is, for example, I'm not answering the question. Or, thanks for sharing, have a nice day. Or, I'm certain enough and living my life. Or, I'm not falling for your crap. Or, I'm excited to be uncertain and free, moving on. Or, fuck off. Really. Because anxiety is not something you want to be your friend. You don't want it to tell you what to do. You could tell it what to do. So what you don't want to do is engage with it. right? What you don't want to do is engage with the anxiety monster. All right. So if you have physical symptoms, right, of anxiety, how do you respond to those physical symptoms? Right? Let's say your heart hurts, or you feel muscle tension in your chest, and you think you're having a heart attack, right? So your anxiety brain is going to tell you, oh no, your heart is racing. How do you respond in your head to that, to anxiety monster? You say, whatever, I can handle it. Welcome back. Stay as long as you like. Focusing on living, not my noisy body. Bring it on. Give me a heart attack, I dare you. Thanks for this opportunity to rewire my brain. That's how you deal with your anxiety monster, with your health anxiety monster. You just say, yeah, bring it on, I'm ready. I know what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be going this way, towards the anxiety, living there, and seeing what happens. Trying to rewire my neurons and whatnot. So, how do you get better at handling physical symptoms and anxious thoughts? With practice. What kind of practice? Well, look at physical symptoms and worrisome thoughts as opportunities to practice. Pitch it. Give me what you got. Try to trick me. I'm going to break my leg. I'm going to break my arm. Right? You got to... strategy is to get you through the anxiety, not to stop it. So you enter the anxiety, and then you hopefully reach a plateau and then exit it. And once you do it on a regular basis, you'll realize your anxiety really doesn't have a lot of control over you. So yeah, I think I'm going to wrap it up here. Let me just see if there's anything else I want to cover. That's basically it. There's some questions I get over real quick, and then there's a part 2 I'll do tomorrow. Some people asked the question, where do I draw the line with my adult child who has health anxiety between being supportive of my adult child and enabling and maybe reinforcing the health anxiety, which is what I don't want to do, but I want to be supportive? Well, Ken Goodman would say, the most common things loved ones do to enable is provide reassurance. So when the person with health anxiety reaches out and says, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Then you say, no, I think you're okay, you're fine, you're okay, and it never seems to be enough. You're just constantly reassuring, right? So don't do that. Instead, be like, son, this is your health anxiety talking. Perhaps try to do some breathing. Perhaps try to be a little mindful and meditate. Do an exposure, perhaps. Say to yourself, bring on whatever you feel. You think you're having a heart attack, son? Say, bring on the heart attack. Bring it on. That would be the best thing to do. I think that's what Ken's saying. Second question is, if I have a choice between doing CBT for my health anxiety or EMDR, is there a preference? Which is going to help me more, or is it about the same? EMDR, I'm not going to get into that right now. You guys can Google it if you want to know what it is. You want to do CBT. It says the answer. EMDR will be very helpful if you had a trauma, whether it's health related or not. So for example, if you have panic attacks and you thought you were doing and you thought you were doing them, and you thought, for example, if you had panic attacks and you thought you were suffering, EMDR can be very helpful. If you had a health scan or trauma related to health, EMDR will be helpful, more so than CBT. Really though, EMDR is used as an adjunct to CBT. The first line treatment is CBT, and then the adjunct would be EMDR. Third question here, as a health anxious sufferer, if I practice CBT, how long before I can expect results? Ken answers, it takes time, it varies, people get better at various degrees, it depends on how quickly you implement the strategies. Next question, if I want to start working on my health anxiety issues, what is an exposure and how do I start doing that? And can I do that on my own? Any general thoughts on that? Ken answers, yes, you can certainly do exposures They are dependent on your fears. Example, if you fear getting cancer, read stories read stories of people who got cancer, or write a horror story where you get cancer. Practice graduated exposure therapy and don't go too fast. Next question, any books you recommend for health anxiety or websites? I would recommend here the Anxiety and Depression Association of America. You can also try KenGoodmanTherapy.com. These are his books: Break Free from Anxiety, Personal Growth Series, Hypnosis for Self-Improvement, Anxiety Solutions, and Stress Free. So that's part 1. It was helpful for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Part 2 will be coming up tomorrow, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. Very, very important to know about health anxiety. But guys, stay with it.